What is up, everybody, and welcome to Celtics Talk Weekly Live. Welcome to CTW Live. We have a breaking edition live here, folks. I mean, we were just live 2 seconds ago, but we had to start a new live here because big news coming out of Boston, coming out of the NBA community, and let's read it for everybody here. As we're working on pulling it up on stream here. But let's actually read the tweet for everybody and get the news out of the way. And Franco, this will be your initial reaction to all of this here. Okay, we'll bring it up here on screen in a second. But initially, breaking via Shams Charania. Breaking. The Boston Celtics have traded Jrue Holiday to the Portland Trailblazers for Anfernee Simons and 2 second-round picks. Sources tell ESPN. So the deal is Jrue Holiday for Anfernee Simons and also 2 second-round picks. So the Celtics get back some picks in this deal along with Anfernee Simons, and that is the official trade.
Well,
2 second-round picks.
Well, the thing that I think makes that obviously my first thoughts, amazing trade. That was for Anfernee Simons, that a new, young, upcoming player who has a lot of potential in the league. The reason why he was so cheap and was quote unquote leased from the Portland Trailblazers, which is kind of funny. That's where Jrue Holiday was originally traded when
back with Portland.
Yeah, back with Portland. So I guess they rescinded the trade and had second thoughts about it. And but yeah, Anfernee Simons, I believe he's on his final year of his rookie or of his contract. So we will have to pay him next year or create a contract extension or something of that sort. But off the bat, you are getting just a rejuvenated team, and you're getting a durable player who is going to be able to play 82 plus games for you this season, contribute 20-point games, and is also now a up and rising player that kind of people were worried about if the Celtics were going past their prime. And with this trade, they are right back into the middle of things and have another key piece that if is extended and partners up with Derek White. First off, that point guard starting lineup, and we're probably going to be receiving news about Kristaps Porzingis in the upcoming hours or upcoming days as well, because I feel like that is going to be I feel like this Jrue trade was the first domino to fall. But if you go into the season with Anfernee Simons, Derek White, and Jaylen Brown, and whatever happens with Kristaps Porzingis and whatever moves you make, you are still in a very solid position going into next year. And right now, the Celtics, we thought this was a bridge year, and that move that we just made really shuts down those rumors of the Celtics are going to be trying to bridge the gap for next year. And I think we just saw a move that really is this team extending its window, depending on what happens with this second tax apron, because they're still under that, I believe. I would have to look at the logistics of the trade and how the numbers with Jrue Holiday and Anfernee Simons match up, but it puts the Celtics in a great position, and they also dump off a whole bunch of salary in the upcoming years.
Well, I have to say, including in this trade, Boston includes 2 first-round picks.
Where did you hear that, Griffin?
Where did you hear that?
I'm seeing this Hoops Hype.
What?
Hoops Hype. I'll send you it.
Wait, hold up. I do. Okay, first of all, conflicting reports here because this is from Shams Charania here. This is the breaking news in which came out from Shams Charania. Breaking.
All right, so second round.
So this is the actual report here from Shams Charania, and this is all of the information in which we have so far. Breaking: the Boston Celtics have traded Jrue Holiday to the Portland Trailblazers for Anfernee Simons and 2 second-round picks. So that's the only information in which we have so
all right, so
far
we're still unknown on the picks and what picks it could be, because there's misinterpretation behind what picks it could be, but this is a big move, as Franco said, for the Boston Celtics, and this is you're getting a young guy who, in the age of only 26 years old, is gonna bring you some life in Beantown. This is a move where you're getting off a guy who, at age, he's an older player. Jrue Holiday, love him. He's the one who essentially brought a championship to Boston, but time has to come to an end because the Boston Celtics need a young, cheap player, and they just got it. I mean, you guys said it, had an amazing year last year with the Trailblazers, and he's a player who could give you young talent and spark some good energy, either starting or off the bench. And this is a big move for Boston. So, going to be interesting to see what picks it is, if it's first round picks, second round picks. As of right now, it looks like second round picks, but we're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see if it's this year or future second round picks. I know the Celtics have 1 second round pick this year, so interesting to see if it could be this year or future years, or could it there's definitely a lot more that we don't know as of right now, because like you guys said, this breaking news just happened. This just happened live. Like, this is big news. So going to be interesting to see. But
you notice the amount of viewers right now? We were just live talking about the Thunder, the Pacers, Tyler Hero hairdos, very light NBA night, right? It was like a light NBA night.
yeah,
And all of a sudden, now we have just, I don't want to say, it's not catastrophic, okay? It's just a monumental occasion here within Celtics history, because you're trading away right now, if you're the Celtics, a player in which brought you the title. One of the 5 key pieces, or one of the 6 key pieces in which brought the Celtics a title in 2024. My first initial reaction of this trade is the Celtics are extending their window with Brown and Tatum with this trade, because Jrue Holiday, we've talked about it ad nauseum. He is a player in which is getting older. He's in his mid 30s, and he just turned 35 years old last week. Just turned 35 years old, and he's under contract for multiple years into his age 37 season. We've been talking about that a lot lately, and the regression of Jrue Holiday this past year. If he regressed this past year, what is he going to look like going ahead into the future? Well, with this trade, the Boston Celtics, they turn a 35-year-old Jrue Holiday into Anfernee Simons, who, if you look at Anfernee Simons' age, 26 years old. And I'll add this on, his birthday was also this month, earlier this month, so he just turned 26. The Celtics just traded a 35-year-old player for a 26-year-old player. Are you kidding me? Like, that is, when we talk about fleece, right? We got picks back in return, and we got their 26-year-old player.
I thought we
because
would have
Jrue Holiday might be a zero asset in 2 years. He might be a player you need to sell.
Who knows what his injuries look like?
Yeah, and I will say it is 2 second round picks to confirm. I think
coming back to Boston.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And we'll find out the details of those
coming
second round
back
picks.
to Boston. So I wonder if we gave up more, because
no, I don't think we did. I think we would. We literally
would
just gave up Jrue Holiday. It was Jrue Holiday for 2 second round picks and Anfernee Simons.
Can I let my Celtics fan come out for a second?
No, we're analysts.
I just want to let it out really quick, Franco.
Fine.
Let me do it. Brad Stevens did it again. Brad, you are a mastermind. 2 second round picks and Anfernee Simons. Brad, you are the guy. You are the GOAT. You are him. I'm going to say it there and then. I love Jrue Holiday. Love you very much. Thank you for banner 18. But bye-bye. Brad, you did it again. The task was, you have to get a player cheaper. You got to do what you got to do. You got to make some moves. And now, look at what we have done. Brad Stevens, I love you. Moving from coaching to front office staff, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to this organization. Brought us banner 18. Now we're expecting 19, 20, 21, 22. Whew, I'm hyped. Brad, you cooked. I'm gonna pull this one up again. Brad Stevens, let's go. That's right. Best GM in the NBA. Hands down. Hands down. He knew the task. He knew the task that was at hand and he cooked. So Brad, you are a mastermind. I just have to say that. You gotta let the Celtics fandom come out at sometimes. Like we have this fan series at Celtics Nation Rise. Brad, Brad, you're cooking. What stew are you cooking up? Because I want to have some of that, and we're gonna have some of that championship stew. That's what he's brewing. That's what he's brewing, guys.
I mean, sure. I mean, okay. So from that, okay. So look, I'm not gonna say right now, like up front. My whole thing right now, just initially, is we're gonna get into every single detail and aspect of this deal with how the money works and everything. But just up front, you're turning a 35-year-old player into a 26-year-old player for the Celtics. And even if Anfernee Simons, I look at Anfernee Simons and you look at Jrue Holiday and Anfernee Simons, they're two different players. I mean, Jrue Holiday is definitely more defensive oriented, Anfernee Simons more offensive oriented. But anytime you have the chance to, because Jrue Holiday, the entire market, Anfernee Simons might have been the best young player we could have received for Jrue Holiday. Maybe there are other 31, 32-year-old players out there, but by the time Tatum comes back, Anfernee Simons, he's going to be only 28 years old. Or let's see. No, next year he'll be 27 when Tatum comes back. So he'll be 27 when Tatum comes back.
That's gonna be in his prime. Like you're trading for
Right.
a player that's gonna be
Who's still going into his prime right now.
Yeah,
He's still going into his prime.
Exactly.
But I'll say this.
And Jrue Holiday, sorry for interrupting you,
No,
Seamus,
go ahead.
but Jrue Holiday, a lot of love towards Jrue, but he's a player that's going to be declining fast, And I just saw a Blazers fan on here, and you got to look at what Jrue Holiday could bring to the table. The Trailblazers are getting a player who, on a stacked Celtics team, wasn't the first option, wasn't the second option, wasn't the third option, wasn't the fourth option, wasn't the fifth option, could maybe be the sixth or seventh option on a Celtics team. So he's a player that could still, I think, give you good numbers offensively, and he could sure for hell as give you good, stats defensively as well. So looking at this trade, I'm not, from even an NBA standpoint, this is an all around good trade because he could help on a championship competitive team. Now, I don't know if the Trailblazers are a championship worthy team, but they're a team where you could be like, all right, you have some good assets, and Jrue Holiday could sure give them some wins for sure, because we're going to go back to that Milwaukee Jrue Holiday that's going to give you more points rather than in Boston. He was more of a pass first point guard, and he's more on the defensive side of the ball. So that's what you're looking at. But again, you're looking at a guy who's going into his prime and going to be in the mixed of his prime, and pairing him with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It's going to be a deadly trio for the Boston Celtics, because more is in store for this young player from Portland. So I hands down, so excited. So excited.
I hate to rain on everybody's parade here about Anfernee Simons and about how, it's going to be Tatum, Brown, and Simons. I do want to bring this up. Simons only has 1 year left on his deal. So the Celtics.
That was the first thing I said. I
1 year deal.
So
$27.7 million next year, and then nothing after that. So the Celtics, they do create themselves a lot of room in terms of the future money. We've been talking about that with Jrue Holiday this entire time during the offseason. We knew the Celtics were going to make a trade. When it came to Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, the Celtics were going to make trades in which made sense from a salary purpose standpoint for themselves and cutting money for not only this year but the future. You looked at Jrue Holiday's contract in the future. So Jrue Holiday next year, he'll be making $32.4 million. So just off the bat, the Celtics save money up front. So Anfernee Simons is at 27.7. Jrue Holiday is at 32.4. So you cut some dollars there for sure. But going into the future, the big thing here, Jrue Holiday, In 26-27, Jrue Holiday is owed $34.8 million. And then 27-28, Jrue Holiday is owed $37.2 million. And that is a player option. That is the big contract, the big year in the future that we were always looking at. Age 37 season, owed $37.2 million. The Celtics get that off their books. They get 34.8 off their books next year. We always looked at the Jrue Holiday extension the minute it was signed in April of 2024, even before the Celtics championship playoff run. I mean, you get that we knew that year the Celtics, we knew it was likely leading to that point, but signing Jrue Holiday, the murmurs were, is he going to be worth that money later on down the line? Nobody cared in the moment because the Celtics were pursuing a title, and it was pay all the title winners essentially. And that's going to be part of Drew's legacy here with the Celtics is not only did the Celtics give him another, I mean, well, let's face it. I mean, he gave the Celtics another ring. He contributed to another ring for Boston. But not only did the Celtics and Jrue Holiday achieve great success together, but the Boston Celtics front office and organization is responsible for giving Jrue Holiday that future money. And they're not gonna deal with it on their books. They're gonna mold the team. The Celtics are gonna mold the team, and the front office is gonna mold the team how they see fit without Jrue Holiday's money, hampering themselves over the next couple of years. But in terms of Jrue Holiday, he does get that payday for himself, and that's kind of a good going away present per se. A little $60 million there on the end for Jrue Holiday. But however, next season, the Celtics. So let's see, 30. So next year, Jrue Holiday is making $32.4 million. So the Celtics right off the bat save about $5 million, $4.7 million, somewhere in that range there. Celtics save money up front next season. They're now, if you're just doing the mental math here, the Celtics coming into today without any moves, the free agents, Al Horford, Cornette, everybody down there, right? Torrey Craig, no free agent signings. Everybody's on the roster, no moves. The Celtics were $20 million above the second apron. So for one, there are more moves on the way. 100%. There are more cost-cutting moves on the way because this move only cut $5 million off that likely 20 million they want to come. I see a world where the Celtics want to come down at least 20 million to that second apron for next season. Anfernee Simons brings it down 5 million, so you're about 15 million away from your goal if you're the Celtics. Kristaps Porzingis, there's going to be deals on the table there. Hauser, $10 million deal. Can you sell that deal? Well, those are really the names on the table right now for the Celtics. But this deal, I could see it. I don't want to say I see it going awry, but Anfernee Simons, I do question the fit next to Brown and Tatum. I do. He is a little bit more of a scoring guard. I mean, I almost wonder if this could be a hedge against Brown and Tatum. Maybe, well, first of all, next year, Brown and Simons, right? That
Yeah.
I can already see that being a Twitter duo where people just are not fans of it on Twitter, like their efficiency, everything about it. But I kind of see a world where next year we were thinking, oh, Brown's going to be the top facilitator and playmaker and ball handler and everything. Well, now Anfernee Simons comes into the rotation in the lineup. Some of that responsibility is now taken away from Jaylen Brown and actually put on Anfernee Simons' shoulders. So you kind of fill that gap. And it's funny, we were talking to Boston Beat Money earlier, and he was kind of mentioning this where he was going, we need a player to kind of fill the gap during Tatum's absence.
Exactly.
And of course, now it becomes Anfernee Simons.
And that's what
but I'm not convinced Anfernee Simons will be here after the one season next year. And we could have just traded Jrue Holiday for 2 second-round picks and 1 year of service from Anfernee Simons and for cap alleviation in the future, which sometimes that can be good for a franchise to alleviate themselves of cap, to actually maneuver in the future when you're on a bad contract. Because let's face it, Jrue Holiday, he could turn into a bad contract over the next 3 seasons easily. He might already be on that tangent. Hold up, one more thing here, Griffin.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced Anfernee Simons is going to be on the Tatum Brown Celtics later on down the line. Could receive a payday from another team out there. Could receive a payday from the Celtics. Still a lot of salary numbers to move around, but I will say it's only guaranteed 1 year of service right now for Simons. And I'm waiting to see. I'm guessing he might be extension eligible, so we might have something coming out on that. Might be a 1 year deal. Might be a prove it year. We'll have to wait on that one from Shams Sharani or whoever. But that's just where we are with this Anfernee Simons deal. We have a lot more to say, but sorry, Griffin, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to say this though. About the signing, I look at this and I think Celtics fans, don't you worry. Brad Stevens is very good at getting contracts done. You saw it with Jason Tatum, he got a contract done. You saw it with Jaylen Brown, he got a contract done. Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Derek White, Jrue Holiday, Porzingis. I know, but you look.
No, I'm not reacting to that. We'll bring this tweet up. Keep going, Griffin. I just reacted to a tweet that had some pretty interesting language involved. Just saying.
All right. Well, we'll hear that in just a second.
Yes, we will.
But this is what I'm coming from. Is I look at this and I don't doubt in my mind that he's gonna get that contract extension, especially depending on what he does in Boston. I feel I feel you might as well even get the contract extension done before the season starts, because Brad Stevens is really a mastermind behind that. However, I like the move because you could please him with Boston being a good team, and you look at that. I think he's gonna enjoy that and be happy because the Trailblazers, they're not such a good team, and he's gonna have a little more. He's gonna be with a better franchise that's always wanting to compete for championships now, and you're gonna see that, and you're gonna be like, well, a lot of players don't mind taking a pay cut when that's the case, even. However, I know he's a
No,
young
no.
player.
Players are not taking pay cuts to
No,
play with the Celtics,
no,
unfortunately.
no,
I
because
hate to
one's
say it,
taking
folks,
pay
but they're
cuts
just
in
not.
not when a championship is promised to, because a championship is not promised right now. However, I'm saying, like, I do see a contract extension happening. Brad is very, very good with that, and I think that's going to happen. And I'm going to miss Jrue too, David. I really am. I love Jrue Holiday, but I'm looking at it like this. You're getting a young player. You're getting a young player, and you're getting a player who is going into his prime. And yes, the contract might scare some people, but you look at that, Seamus, as what you said, is you're getting off of that salary. All right. You're getting where you want to. And if Brad likes him and he's doing well with the organization, he's going to get that contract extension. It's without a doubt. The Celtics are very smart with what they do with that. They're not like other teams in Boston, Red Sox, that like to mess with that. But I'm very confident in what Brad can do.
Well, can you guys tell me what you guys think about the language in this tweet right here, and what your guys' initial thoughts are with this tweet from Shams that came out immediately after the Jrue Holiday trade just a couple of minutes ago. Shams Charania says an extremely active offseason begins for the Celtics with the trade of Jrue Holiday, who played a critical role in Boston's 2024 NBA championship. The Celtics remain engaged in trade talks surrounding multiple key players on the roster, sources said.
It's what we were.
Multiple key players? Multiple key players? Who are those multiple key players? Now, and I realize could mean Sam Hauser, could
Yeah,
mean
it's not real
Kristaps
bad.
Porzingis, but does this go beyond them? Does it go
Well,
to
there's
Jaylen Brown? Does it go to Derek
Derek
White? I
White. Yeah,
specifically look at Derek
those
White,
are
or
two players.
I don't know.
And
I
Seamus,
wouldn't think so, but
well, those are two
we're hearing those
players.
are the names. There's only so
Those are
many
two,
names.
and you say that, Seamus. Those are two players that Shams has already said stuff about. So and
He
there's
said
already been
things about Holiday, Porzingis, Hauser, White, and Brown. The only
exactly.
player in which I feel is safe here because he's owed $71 million in 2031 and he just tore his Achilles is Jason Tatum.
Yeah,
Like that, and I'll just bring this out.
and
I'll
Peyton
bring this out
Pritchard.
years in advance. What if Tatum? Don't even go off on this tangent. I'm just saying this for the crowd. What if Tatum, that 71 million in 2031? What if that's just the worst contract in the NBA? I don't. I'm just saying it. Go ahead, Griffin. I won't bring up that
No, but
topic. We're not. There's a time and place for everything. We're
but
not
there,
talking about it with the Tatum contract, but he's the only
no,
safe one.
yeah, but there's already been rumors about Brown and Derek White. So that's definitely some concerning talk because key players, Porzingis, all right, we've known for forever that he was going to be in trade talks this offseason. We knew Jrue Holiday was going to be on the move. We knew that Sam Hauser is going to be in trade discussions. However, the Celtics said if a trade blows them away with Derek White and Brown, they're open. They're open. But
Like Dylan Harper and Anfernee Simons. Wow, how did we? It's like, how did we do this?
I'm not. I will say this though. I want to keep Brown and White though. I
Yeah.
really do think those key players. Now those are some extreme words, but that's who he is. He's a guy for tweets. He's a guy that's trying to get active out there. So those key players could really be Porzingis and Hauser. So I don't think we should get too worked up about it yet, but because I just don't see it happening. You know that Jaylen Brown is going to carry the load for the Boston Celtics this year. And you know that Derek White is an important piece on this team who could potentially even be an all-star candidate next season with the absence of Jason Tatum. So I don't believe that is the case. I feel like those are two safe names on here as well. However, I believe those players is Porzingis and Hauser. But yeah, some scary choice of words for sure, Seamus.
What I see is the Celtics are having a yard sale, and people are walking up and trying to buy the dog and the cat.
Is
Like,
Griffin okay? What just happened? Like, what?
he's
I
rolling
just,
around.
I
I'm
literally just
okay.
heard a thump, and I just like saw him like fall off camera. It's like, did
No,
we just? It's like when Joe Mazzulla just drops down from the float. I was like, what's
no,
going on here? Like, is he okay?
no, I'm okay. I just see a fire truck out there, so I'm a little concerned, but we're good. Living that's the one thing I will admit. Ever since I moved to college, living in the city, it's definitely interesting with all the sounds and ambulances and police. Oh, police, everything. It's definitely interesting. So I was trying to see what the commotion is out there.
Well, Franco, what point were you on here? Unless you want to
Sorry, Franco.
Oh, what
respond to
was I?
this
What
comment
was I
here,
saying? Oh,
or the next one.
I was having one of my stupid symbolisms. Yeah, the Celtics are having a yard sale right now, and people are walking up the driveway asking for the dog and the cat in the window, which are Jaylen Brown and Derek White. Like, they're not for sale. We have Kristaps Porzingis on a table. We got Sam Hauser on a table. We got Xavier Tillman on a table. Like, we have those out on the market, and everyone's going for the things that have the not for sale sign on them. And it's not, I don't think it's unattainable. I think someone is going to really need to pry the Brown or White from this team and really put together a deal that almost sets back whatever team is making that trade. And I just don't see that being a reality where I can see the Celtics giving up anyone who has legitimate value to them in the long run, because the Celtics aren't in a position of rebuilding a team. It's more of a remodeling than anything else. They're going to be shifting around pieces, and it's not going to be your core pieces. They're going to still stick to the foundation, but we've seen a whole bunch of different iterations of the Boston Celtics, and there's a few players that will remain consistent throughout the seasons. One thing that we've seen from the Celtics is their ability to retain players for multiple years. I feel like you see players last a lot longer in Boston than they do per se in a different organization, just because of how well they are able to work the salary cap. But I would assume that obviously this is going to be the first domino to fall, and probably I guarantee Brad is on the phone right now trying to make something else happen, and we might be breaking another trade in 2 or 3 hours for all we know. But
Well,
I just think that
If they could give us some, I literally started out this entire evening saying, "Hey, can we spread out the headlines a little bit, NBA?
I
Can we
know what
just
the heck.
please?" We're
Well,
going, we're going Durant trade to Halliburton injury to Game 7 of the Finals to Holiday trade to the NBA draft. It's like boom! Like, what are we doing? Like, this
well,
is
well, can I say
it's
to
all
add
like,
on?
please, no more moves tonight.
Yeah,
Please, Celtics,
no,
please.
no.
We're from a concept like we need sleep. We need sleep.
Well,
I
Franco,
have a, yeah. What's up?
to add on to your take, with that puppy and kitten in the window, are you taking a cherry red Ferrari for it? Like, come on now. Are we taking the gold prize for it? Like, if someone's like, all right, I know those cats and that beautiful kitten and
I,
beautiful puppy aren't for sale, but
Honestly,
I have a
don't think I
pretty
would trade my cat for a Ferrari. I really
Meow
don't.
is not going anywhere.
no.
Meow is not
Well,
going
what if
anywhere.
they're
Or even
like,
Mustang. You don't need a
what if
Ferrari. I
they're
mean,
like,
we're good.
well, what if they're like, well, that dog, yeah, it's nice, whatever, but I got a big, nice, beautiful dash hound out here that's just gonna blow your socks off. Something like that. Or what is that? Like a Siberian husky with beautiful blue eyes. Are you taking that? Are you taking that? Are for a good price? Are you taking that puppy that's
Are you
not for
taking
sale?
that for Jrue Holiday, folks? Is that for
What
Jaylen Brown and Derek White? You taking a big old Greyhound?
I
Is
mean,
that
what would it be?
or
You'd
the
have to be
cherry red
talking
Ferrari?
trade.
You're not, or like a Bugatti. Or are you
Uh,
taking a $3 billion car out there, or are
I
you?
mean,
Not $1 million.
I just don't think that that's really in the Celtics' best interest because right now you're seeing a very
No, you don't.
steady balance
Yeah.
of winning now and also conserving for the future. That is the name of the game. When I say this year is going to be a bridge year, you're not going to see this team obviously not have as star-studded of a starting lineup that they did the past 2 years, and you're lucky to see a team be able to put together or that and be able to hold that together for that long. Obviously, injuries hindered the length that that group stuck together, but I think you're just going to be mixing and matching players, and I feel like the next couple moves are going to be a little bit more depth oriented. I think you're going to be looking at more players that will be coming in and out of the lineup, possibly another wing who will be starting alongside Brown for this season. You're going to be looking with the trade for Anfernee Simons. I can see the Celtics now looking desperately at improving defense. So I can see a defensive wing coming to Boston, like the name that I've been I've connected to the Celtics and I've thought would be a good match contractually wise and just the matchup and trades and how it would work out is I would think that like a Rui Hachimura or a Jared Vanderbilt filling in for as one of those guys because I mean think about it. Next year you just need guys to carry through and once that 1 year deal is done with a player like a Hachimura and I'm sure that I can list off a couple of other players that would come to mind. Jabari Smith might be an interesting one or someone of that sort, but I just like don't see there being too much of a drop off in what they're getting, and I can also see them going with a bigger and more defensively stouted center with the transaction of Anfernee Simons because now Kristaps Porzingis, you can't have two players that can be viewed as defensive liabilities or players that you can pick on the court at the same time. So I can definitely see them starting to go with a more defensive oriented route and allowing for the backcourt of White and Simons and Jaylen Brown to be the lead scoring, and then have other guys that can just fill in for the other necessary needs on a basketball court on the defensive end.
Well, I'm gonna say this: like you look at Jaylen Brown and you look at Brad Stevens, and Jaylen Brown was a key piece to his team, and he has a lot of connections with Jaylen Brown. But we said the same with Marcus Smart. However, Jaylen Brown is a player where
Very
you're not gonna move him. You're not gonna move him. And Derek White, like you're not gonna move that just from their own personal relationship and his effect on the court. And you're not gonna move Derek White because what value do you get from Derek White that could give you the same value? I don't think you move Derek White. I think really those pieces are Porzingis and Hauser, and I really think they're gonna blow you away because Brad Stevens has some good moves. Brad Stevens, we known he's cooked since the minute that he became the GM for the Boston Celtics. We've known that he brought in Jrue Holiday and he brought in Kristaps Porzingis, and that brought you a championship to Boston. Now he just got a player that's going into his prime for Jrue Holiday. So it's like, what other moves can Brad Stevens finesse out there to bring more players to Boston? You know, like it's like, what are we gonna do? And I think people are like, oh well, you're not gonna get the most value for these players. Well, watch out, Boston fans, because Brad Stevens is a very smart guy, and he brings in good talent, and you just saw this. And I think the Celtics finessed in this move, and I think they really got the win on this trade. You know, obviously Jrue Holiday could bring a lot to the table. However, Anfernee Simons is a player that's going to be in his prime, and you look at it, if he's happy in Boston and he's giving you good production, he's a player that could get a contract extension. And this is going to be, at the end of the day, we could look at this trade and be like, wow, Brad Stevens really is a smart GM. And I think I'm going to go as far as to say he is the best GM in the NBA, hands down.
There's people with longer resumes. So until he's reaching those ages in front office, and you put together multiple dynasties instead of just a great decade, then he's more in the conversation. But he's definitely up there, and he definitely deserves the conversation. But I will add on to this. When you said that, one thing that I've noticed was a lot of sources that we saw were a lot of media saying that the Celtics aren't going to be receiving the packages that they're looking for. They're going to have to be sending out picks to move off of these players like Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Those players are viewed as negative assets, quote unquote. Those whoever are writing those sources are just like kings of propaganda and are working the multimedia PR connections and doing all that stuff because they're just trying to manipulate the market with those types of reports getting out into the wind work, because Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday are going to have that value no matter what, because their championship DNA has value in the NBA. Without a doubt, if you won a ring, you went through an entire season with a roster, know what the experience is like to be in the locker room, being able to go in and out of a 7-game series and being able to call yourself a championship at the end of it is a very extremely valuable skill to have. And even if you're the 15th man on the roster, that still brings up your value. Look at a guy like Svi Mykhailiuk, who this offseason, last season, probably played around not even 100 minutes for the Boston Celtics. Now is getting paid $7.1 million in Utah. And it mainly comes from just the fact that obviously he's a skilled player and on as a good rotational piece, but he doesn't get that pay cut and paycheck if he doesn't win that championship. He's most likely still sitting in free agency. But I'm like looking at these guys, and these trades are not going. Everyone thought that it was the Celtics were in a much worse position than they were, but it's all about how you can sell these guys, and you can market a player like Kristaps Porzingis as still an athletic player that if you have a player that can tandem swap with them at the center position, you're good, and that's a solid bench or solid big man pairing that you can have and potentially lead your team to a championship with.
Well, let's bring a couple of these up because you talk about a player potentially who could, and we've been talking about Anfernee Simons this whole night, a player who could be a part of the next iteration of the Celtics championship, the Celtics championship run, rather. Anfernee Simons, this coming from Justin Turpin. From the start of the new year through the end of the season, Anfernee Simons averaged 3.4 made threes per game, the fifth most in the league during that span, a minimum of 30 games played during that span, only behind Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, Malik Beasley, and Derek White. He shot 38.2% over that stretch. So, Anfernee Simons, that's something that Twitter is going insane about right now is his 3-point percentage. He's nearly a 40% career 3-point shooter. For his career in total, he is 38.1% from three. So, looking at the Celtics' philosophy of wanting to shoot the tray ball, right? Anfernee Simons fits that package for the Celtics, and I think he just gives the Celtics a completely different look from what we've seen out of this team the last couple of years. We finally have, and I don't want to say finally because we've seen it year in and year out, but a ball dominant guard. We have a ball dominant guard back, and he's not crazily ball dominant. He's not a complete black hole. Last year averaged 4.8 assists. The year before 5.5. So it's not as if he's a complete black hole offensively. He's not just going to dominate the ball and be that type of player. There is some playmaking skill there within Anfernee Simons, but it's a different look, right? We have more of an attacking guard right now. Derek White and Jrue Holiday, they're not as big of downhill attackers. They're not so much. They're not as much of isolation scorers as Anfernee Simons is. And that's going to be an interesting wrinkle is having another guard like that paired next to particularly Jaylen Brown next year, but potentially Brown and Tatum as the years move on. And this is a huge point I want to get to in this trade is just the asset overturn. Okay, a big point in the Kevin Durant trade was how bad the asset overturn was for the Phoenix Suns from going they traded they went from Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and essentially 5 first-round picks. They trade that for Kevin Durant, and then they trade Kevin Durant for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 10th overall pick, and 5 second-round picks. That is terrible. That is awful. That is no good asset overturn for the Phoenix Suns. That's going to tank their franchise for the back half of this decade easily with where the Phoenix Suns are right now relative to the rest of the league. The Celtics, they just turned a 35-year-old Jrue Holiday into 26-year-old Anfernee Simons. And not only that, they get off future money while doing so. Jrue Holiday's deal, I mean, I don't know if Jrue Holiday's deal next year, if Jrue Holiday goes through another year of regression, he's owed $30+ million. Are you getting a player back like Anfernee Simons? Can the Blazers right now trade Jrue Holiday to another team for a 26-year-old player? That's just not. I don't think that's happening. That's just I don't see that happening. I think Jrue has some value left in him on court, but relative to his contract, that's I think he's going to be a good player for a team like the Blazers. The Blazers. We didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about the Blazers as a destination on the Jrue Holiday live when we the
I think
previewed a potential. We
no,
might we
no, we did because we went through every single team. We put Jrue Holiday on every single
This is why we
roster.
shouldn't have. I think what we did with the Blazers, did we rope them in with the? We didn't
I
rope them in with
no.
the salary dump teams. I don't know. We'll have to go back and look at that. We did
Yep.
we did talk about every single team at the end of that. No, you're right. But in terms of the main teams, right? It was the Mavericks, it was the Kings, um, it
Yep.
was the
R.I.P.
Clippers,
my
right?
broke off
But
season before anyone got to see it.
I'm not gonna lie. That was one of my first 3 thoughts. I'm going. Oh, that's because I'm not even going to go into it. I'm not even going to go into it. That's rough. It was rough. It's rough. I'm sitting here on this live stream actually thinking of ways we could somehow still present it with like it being relevant. Like I just maybe
No,
we just
no.
I don't know. I'm just
Well,
saying.
that's
I don't know. We can look
well,
back at it. I'm not. I don't know.
well,
But in that deal,
I
it's like we didn't really look. But this was the point. We looked at the Blazers. We looked at every team, but we were pinpointing teams that could take on the salary. Maybe they have pretty big salaries, but then the rest of their salaries are all below $10 million, below $15 million. They don't really have that mid tier of salary, or they just don't have a ton of big salaries. The Blazers, they're that team. They don't have a ton of big salaries. They have a bunch of young guys they're likely going to pay in the future. But at this current moment, it's not as if the Blazers, I mean, all their big salaries are guys they likely want to get rid of. And one of the guys, it's Anfernee Simons. I mean, the top three salaries right now, DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant, and Jrue Holiday.
Yeah.
Potentially, if you're the Blazers, you could sell all three of those players and get something back. I mean,
Or they could
all three of those players.
advertise that as a big three.
I guess I'm confused as to whether or not they're going to do that next year in Portland, or if they're actually just
that might be
in
an
a
interesting
big
piece.
asset accumulation, flip it for something else in the future. Because I'll say this about the Blazers: they were trading Anfernee Simons as an expiring. Now Jrue Holiday, if he does put forth some value on the court next season, or they might even reroute him again. We saw him reroute him 2 years ago. They might reroute him again somewhere. But if he has some value on court, they have extra time to trade him, right? They can trade him next offseason. They don't have to. They also maintain leverage at this year's trade deadline of they don't need to trade Simons away for nothing. They don't need to trade Jrue Holiday away for nothing because he's going to walk. He's going to be on contract for the next couple of years. So that's certainly an aspect in this deal for the Blazers. But the asset overturn for the Celtics is my main point in all of this, is the asset overturn. You are literally, like, if Simons is here for the next 9 years, Jrue Holiday is not playing for the next 9 years. Like that, and that's a big number. But let's just say, 2, 3, 4 years later on down the line, if Simons is still here by the time he's age 30, if he's 30,
reaching Derek White's age.
right? If he's here in 4 seasons from now, Simons, he'll be 30, which is, or like you said, around Derek White's age, around Brown, he'll be 29 next year. So if Simons is here in 4 years, he'll be just reaching 30. Meanwhile, if Holiday's here in 4 years, he'll be nearly 40. He'll be 39 years old. That is what I'm really zoning in on here and going, wow, in the next 3, 4 seasons, you just extended your window with that asset. Because I see, like, the assets, it changes over time. Like, you just traded, essentially, if you're the Celtics, like, if we really went back in history, it's like you traded away Neesmith for Brogdon, Neesmith and Tice for Brogdon, then you trade away Brogdon and Robert Williams, and which was your own draft pick, away for Holiday, and now you trade away Holiday for Simon. So it's about what does the asset turn into, right? Like, what does it turn into over time? Right now, we just traded a 35-year-old player who's likely not going to be playing 4 or 5 seasons from now for a player who will only be 30 4 or 5 seasons from now. It gets to a level of, like, I don't even care what the on-court. I mean, obviously we have to care about the on-court production. Like, can't be trading. It's like, oh, let's get 26-year-old Ike Anabogu or something, something like that. But with the stature, I don't care about the baggage in which comes with Anfernee Simons right now, simply because of his age. Like, we can get into all the X's and O's, but Simons and Browns, like, are they going to turn the ball over too much? Are they going to be a little bit too your turn, my turn type? Are the Celtics going to be a little bit too isolation heavy? Are they not going to be able to move the ball as much as they want to next year? We could talk about all that kind of stuff, but what I'm looking at on the initial night of the trade here is just the fact the Celtics, seriously, I'm just looking at it 3, 4 years down the line, if they can, and if they will. That's another thing. Will the Celtics extend Anfernee Simons? What does it say here? I've been talking. Let's see.
Is Simons really going to be a player on this roster?
Well, he's not going to be. Pritchard isn't going to be the starting point guard, first of all.
Okay, so Pritchard, his 6th man of the year performance, we just got to address this because this has been a thought within the Celtics community about Peyton Pritchard potentially moving up to a starting position. I don't see that being where he is his most successful or his most productive at any point of his career. Obviously, I think he can reach a level if he is ever gone to the Celtics' head and they need to put Peyton Pritchard into the starting lineup. He's shown that he's capable of filling in for a few nights in a row. But his best production is being that second wave of offense off the bench, and the Celtics would be remiss to be moving on from that and making him take on more of a weight than he needs to. Obviously, with this move of Jrue Holiday and adding Anfernee Simons, you're adding a lot more offense to the backcourt, but I think Simons, White, and Pritchard, they are all going to be able to tandem fairly well together as a rotation, as the guard rotation. If you want to consider J.D. Davidson in there, he'll be your back end guy, taking up those 5 to 10 minute eating up. Who knows? Possibly we might see the resurgence in his game. First time that we'll be seeing him as watching the Celtics as a full-time member of the roster. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes into next year looking, but not expecting him to make an indent on Pritchard or White or Simons minutes. But yeah, I just wanted to address that. Peyton Pritchard is going to continue to be a sixth man for the Celtics until further notice, unless there was an injury or another trade happens that makes it very clear that's going to happen. But the Celtics would be not putting themselves in the best position to win if that were to be the case.
Well, I have to say this. So, again, I apologize for you guys getting like a whole room tour and a great view of my wall. There was like some cops down there too, so I wanted to go investigate. But
go give us a live news report.
I know. Come on. We just interviewed Malcolm Johnson. We should know how to do this.
Well, should I be down there?
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, there is a fire truck, and then there are 3 policemen out there. I think I got it. You know,
yeah,
I got the buzz cut
and ask them what they think of the Jrue trade.
Yeah, what a cat stuck.
Okay, I am just picturing this, Griffin. If you took the camera outside right now and seriously asked a bunch of cops and firemen about the Jrue trade, that would be just a tremendous piece of content, and I almost want it to happen.
Well, they just
I don't know what the responses would be, but I just think it would be funny. Like that would just be an amusing thing. It's like
they just left, yeah. But I apologize. Now I'm on the other side of my room because I need to grab my charger, so no longer in a comfy spot. But man, Brad, you cooked. But sorry, I got off topic. But no, this is incredible, and you're gonna look, and I just thought about that. I'm like, well, what do we do now from here? Because I don't think Pritchard would have got the starting role anyways. He was very reliable coming off the bench, and I think Missoula knows that. Brad Stevens knows that, and they're going to rely on that again the second year in a row. And who knows, maybe 6th man of the year again. You could go back to back. But they're going to utilize –
or what was the other one? Lou Williams?
Yeah, so you could utilize him in that aspect. And I think that's what the Celtics are going to do. So I don't see anything happening like that. So then you have Simons and Derek White. So that's a great pairing. And I love this move for the Celtics. And yes, it's young. And you could have the question mark. All right, what if he never plays with Tatum? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Brad Stevens is going to cook and get that contract extension done, and I believe he will be playing with Jason Tatum.
That is likely the long-term goal of the Celtics here. When you acquire a 26-year-old player, it's likely to – because I'm also looking at this going, well, Jrue Holiday in 2 seasons, right? That was the part of the conversation coming into the summer is, well, Tatum with an Achilles tear, he's likely not coming back for another season or for another 2 seasons, essentially. He's missing all of next season, presumably, and then he's coming back the year after. Jrue Holiday, he'll be 36 years old when Tatum comes back into the picture. 36. And if you don't win the title in that first year, what, he's going to be 37 in that second year Tatum comes back? Because I'm not banking on the Celtics. Like when Tatum comes back, it could be a whole year after Tatum comes back for the Celtics put them like they might not put themselves into contention until Tatum's second year back. That's 3 seasons from now. Just saying, it's possible. It's possible, but that's where I'm saying I'm looking at Anfernee Simons, when Tatum comes back, he'll be 27 years old versus Jrue, who'll be 36. You are more prepared for Simons going ahead into the future when Tatum comes back than you are with Holiday. Because Holiday, when Tatum comes back, there's such a small window with Holiday. He might have when Tatum comes back, Holiday next season could already regress to a point where he's not worth his contract. And we're looking at him on court going, this is just a shell of what Jrue Holiday used to be with that championship squad. Instead, now the window is expanded with Anfernee Simons. We're probably gonna with the front two. We're probably gonna get that wrong all year. Anfernee Simons. We gotta really get it out there. Anfernee. It'll turn into an Anthony if I go too fast. But Anfernee Simons, right? You're extending the window if you're the Celtics. With Jrue, it's so short because when Tatum comes back, it's like Jrue might already have been like he might already regress at that point to a point where he's not unplayable, but not where he was. But furthermore, if you don't win the title in that first year with Tatum back, then Jrue Holiday, it's like, what is he going to look like at 37, 38, and beyond that? Is he even going to be playing at that point? The window is so short. The margins are so thin versus if you have Anfernee Simons in the building, he's going to be 27 years old when Tatum comes back. I mean, he's going to be a player. I mean, he's a player projected to play. He's already played 7 years in the league, which is insane. He's played 7 years in the league, and he's still only 26 years old. I want to point that out with Anfernee Simons, a career 38% three-point shooter. I already mentioned that with him, but he's likely going to play into his 30s, and that's 4 years away right now. So the window just expands greatly for the Celtics. It's still to be seen of whether he actually receives a contract extension, whether they re-sign him in free agency next offseason. Whatever happens in that regard still needs to happen for the Celtics to secure Simons long-term. And he might even be a player. Maybe we look at him and go, maybe we don't want his services long-term. Maybe we look next summer. I'm just saying next summer, it's possible the Celtics get rid of a lot more money than we expect on the roster this season. And next season, maybe Simons, we look at him and go, well, if we let him walk and don't re-sign him, maybe we can go get another guard out on the free agency market. So gives the Celtics a lot of leverage here. And if they want to sign him long-term, they obviously can now with him in the building. But ultimately, the window, if the Celtics extend Anfernee Simons, the window, regardless, it changes. The window was so slim. The margins were slim with Jrue Holiday. Now, the window, everything expands with Anfernee Simons, whether he's on the roster or not. That's how I see this trade.
And I have to say, Seamus, we have the potential bridge year next year for the Boston Celtics. And I'm
excited for this. I was already excited for the bridge year, but
I am too.
Simons and Brown, it's like, let's hoop. Like I feel like
have fun. They're
gonna be fun.
Kickstart a fun season. Like, let's have fun, no stress. Don't panic. All right. I feel like a lot of this
season, when we're 4-4, we're like,
yeah, I know. A lot of this season was panic. I feel like a lot of this season when we had that slump, we were like, oh, come on, the expectation is back to back. Now it's like we expect a bridge year, so it's like, all right, well, if we are 4-4, whatever, there might be a game. All right, Simons goes out for. Quote me if I'm wrong, but watch it be right. Simons might go out and drop 50 one night, and we're like, whoa, that's how.
Well, here we go. Simons 40-point game this year, yes or no? I feel like that's.
I'm gonna go yes, 100%.
Yeah.
But I look at this, but ultimately this, it might be a couple years, like I said on the podcast with Boston B Money today. It might be a couple years till the Celtics are back to championship caliber, being 100% going to be in contention for that championship. However, this is a player that you could build into the team, get him used to Boston culture, get him right acclimated with the fans and everything, and get him adjusted to the Boston Celtics and get him ready for that championship run and get that extension done and get him used to playing alongside Jaylen Brown and Derek White and Peyton Pritchard and that core when Jason Tatum comes back, and get him used to that and acclimated into that. Like a fish, you're not just going to throw a fish. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't. You're not going to just throw a fish into his tank. But you're.
I mean, it's like you could. I guess you could. It's like morally,
it might die. So if you just throw Simons out there with this new championship team. I mean, you can, but it's better that he's coming in. Franco doesn't like this take. It looks like, but
No, I'm just trying.
Simons is like it's late, ladies and gentlemen. It's like almost 1 o'clock here, so we're going straight off of.
Let's also
But
brief this
Simons
for
is like a
everybody.
coach,
You
though.
and
That's
me,
what I'm saying.
Griffin, were live when it happened. Like we were
I
already
know. We
into
were
a 2 hour
starstruck.
live, and then it's like, here comes Jrue Holiday, and it's like, can we just
You know the
maybe
craziest part about
do
this, though?
this in the middle of the day or something? Like,
The craziest part is the Trailblazers got him originally, and you look at that trade and what went down and what happened in that trade, and you send Robert Williams and Malcolm Brogdon to the Trailblazers for Jrue Holiday. Maybe there was some connection. They're like, hey, we'll give you this guy. We know he's good and he could win you a championship. We got the championship, and they're like, all right, you got the extension. Give him back. You know, you got your championship. You got your deed with him. Send him back, please. It's just funny how you traded him and traded him back.
Well, would you have traded? That kind of brings up the thought here of we basically traded Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, and a couple first round picks as well for Anfernee Simons and 2 second-round picks. Like, is that worth it? Is that worth it?
No.
Well, no, you're right. We didn't. It was worth it. No, it was worth it. What am I talking about? We won a championship. It's worth it. We won a championship.
You got the honor of having a veteran who I think has a good chance of being in the Hall of Fame when his career is said and done. You know, there's a slim chance he could be in the Hall of Fame. You got
brought us this thing right here, the fake Larry O.B.
You brought us the Larry O'Brien trophy, and you got 2 years of watching an incredible player who I used to swear at the TV at. You know, I used to be so pissed off whenever the Milwaukee Bucks played the Celtics and Jrue Holiday.
Thank you, Jrue, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know,
gotta give some thanks for Jrue Holiday.
You know, I'm gonna say this fact too. It still hasn't sunk in that Jrue Holiday was a Boston Celtics player. You know, it really never did, because I'm so used to screaming at this guy on a TV like, F Jrue Holiday, like he kills the Celtics, like, come on, like, what are we doing? And then we got Jrue Holiday. I know I have the Holiday jersey on because I love Jrue Holiday. Like, I'm gonna miss him. I'm definitely gonna miss him for sure. But at the end of the day, it was a great 2 years. He brought you that championship. He is the reason behind that championship, like, hands down. He brought you that banner 18. Jrue Holiday. Obviously, there were other assets completely. Jaylen Brown winning Finals MVP. Jason Tatum. That's how late it is. Almost 1 o'clock in the morning. But Jason Tatum, you know, there were so many other assets that brought you that championship. But, you know, Jrue Holiday was that final puzzle piece that really brought you over that hump and won you banner 18. So it was great, you know, and I don't think you could look back and be like, oh, well, you know, you gave up Brogdon and Robert Williams and first-round picks for Anfernee Simons because you got Jrue Holiday, who it was a fun 2 years with him. I loved watching Jrue Holiday on the Boston Celtics wear that number 4. You know, I love that, and it was so worth it to see banner 18 go up into the rafters.
Definitely. And for the Portland Trailblazers, we'll give our perspective. We'll switch our shoes real quick into some Portland Trailblazers shoes. Looking at their roster right now.
What? Wait, what? What did you just say, Franco? You say switching shoes? I'm literally out here. I'm like, let me take off my shoes. Like, I literally have one shoe off. I have one shoe on the other foot. I'm like, I got to take off my shoes here on this live stream. And then just out here, I'm like, what is he? What? Like, does he have a camera in here? What's going on? Is there?
Well,
it's like, is my iPad camera working?
Why are you wearing shoes for you almost 12 o'clock at night? Why are you wearing shoes, bro? Like,
because I left my house, came back, got on live immediately. We did that live earlier, and then now we're here because Jrue Holiday was traded. I didn't have time to take out my shoes out here. I'm just trying to do it on stream here, but
yeah, I will say, you guys, I am so comfy right now. Like this. Sorry, like I know, Franco, you're trying to go on a tangent about what Jrue Holiday.
No, Franco.
But I'm laying down in my bed right now, well, like kind of slouching in my bed. Dogs out, you know, I'm big chilling. Right
okay,
now.
We didn't need that, man. We didn't. All I said out, Franco was like, we're stepping into the shoes of another franchise. And I was like, no way. I literally have one shoe on. I'm taking my shoes off. Like, how did he know this?
Well,
We didn't
well,
know.
I'm
We didn't
just
need to
saying,
know anything
you know,
about the dogs, Griffin. All right, the dog. You better be talking about those furry little creatures and not your toes. Your animals. Your animals in your
I
house.
have to say, well, we have bald Griffin, and this is a new look. Franco, do I look like Tyler Hero or Baylor Shireman? That's the
Okay,
question of the day.
we
But I'm just saying,
we
like,
have great screenshots from the live earlier before the entire night went
can,
awry here.
we
Not
got
awry, but like just crazy breaking
can we
news.
try to pull that up before Franco like leaves later? Like, before we close this out.
We'll try. We'll try. We'll try.
But
But anyway,
Franco,
Franco.
go
But Franco,
on. My bad.
go on your
You have to
tangent
hear
before
about
you
the
ruin the
big
entire live
combo
stream
for
yet
the
again.
big toe. Yeah,
All
go
right.
ahead.
What was I saying? Oh, I was going to talk about why this trade makes sense for the Portland Trailblazers, or at least try to make sense of it for our national viewers that we have on our program. Looking at it from the Portland perspective, you have the three young guards / wings, depending on how you want to look at Shaden Sharp. But you had Shaden Sharp, Henderson, and Anfernee Simons on the same roster, and those guys are all extremely talented. However, it seemed very redundant to have those players that do kind of almost all play the same role on that team and are taking up the shots and our primary scorers, are not the most effective players on the defensive end. However, Scoot Henderson a little bit more athletic. Shaden Sharp brings a little bit more size and length and can stretch into the three position. But adding Jrue Holiday, that's a perfect player to match up with those two guys in the backcourt over in Portland. Just as a mentor and a player that can almost have the same amount of minutes as those guys. You could play Holiday for probably 20, 25 minutes a game in Portland and get solid contributions out of him. He can also lead this team into being a very touted defensive team and having players like Kamara and Jonathan Klingon. They're going to be a lot more defensive minded, and you're kind of seeing them transition out of that offensive, trying to figure out who our main scorer is, to now building a team with kind of players in place that make sense, players in places that make sense. Because if you looked at the rosters of like Washington and now that we're talking about in Portland, there was not a lot of rhyme or reason to the way their roster was constructed. It was a lot of players that they were just eating up the salary cap for in trades. And now it's starting to shake out to a point where you're starting to see what they're going for. And don't get me wrong, I don't think Portland lost this trade at all. I mean, they obviously did not have the intentions of re-signing Anfernee Simons because of the fact that they already have so many young players that they need to put on new contracts anyways. So it, they get to move off of a player who is going to most likely be demanding a higher pay raise, and looking at next year and the years after that, Anfernee Simons as a rental, it could be beneficial for both sides. The Celtics get production on the offensive end while Tatum is out with an injury next year, and the Portland Trailblazers get depth and also clear up some space. And the even if the Celtics make some moves to rearrange the salary cap, it makes sense. But I could see the reality that Anfernee Simons somehow goes through next year, depending on, like I repeat myself, what these next moves that look like, what they do with Kristaps, who they get in return for a player like Sam Hauser. Are you going to be able to stack up the bench a little bit more to have a little bit more of a competitive edge to it? How many of those players do you plan on keeping around as long-term rotational pieces? And after that, you're just looking at this team, and they're in a solid position. And even if he does move off, that means that whole entire Jrue Holiday contract is gone. So you have any money that would have carried over into the next couple of years if Anfernee Simons walks away, and you can utilize that to either bring back Simons or make other additions to the team elsewhere.
Well, I have to say this too. You mentioned how valuable of a piece Drew Holiday is, and I'm gonna say a take I said earlier too. I look at Drew Holiday as a player before the Boston Celtics on the Milwaukee Bucks, who was the second or third option on that team. And you look at that Drew Holiday, obviously the Celtics, he was like the sixth or seventh option on this Boston Celtics team. However, we are forgetting that Drew Holiday can score when he's needed to. He was not needed to score on the Celtics. That was just a bonus. You know, his responsibility was with the Celtics was passing, and give it your all on the defensive side of the ball. You know, so now we're gonna see a Jrue Holiday that we haven't seen in 2 years. Now, will it be the same Jrue Holiday with the Milwaukee Bucks? Probably not, because he's used to having a different game. However, he could bring that back in bits and pieces, and he could give you a bigger scoring load in Portland as well.
I think
And
I
no, go
think
ahead, Franco.
we're gonna. I think I don't know if we're gonna be seeing that Milwaukee or even that Boston Celtics iteration of Jrue Holiday. Yes, that IQ is still gonna be there, but I think he's just a good player to match up with those two young guards and Henderson and Sharp, and have that yin and yang type of ordeal where you have these young players who can bring the offensive end. However, you bring in the chiseled veteran Jrue Holiday to bring the playmaking and the defensive responsibilities for this team. So I can see why the Portland Trailblazers added the second round picks to this. I thought that when I first joined in here, I was getting ready to roll over for. I got a big meeting tomorrow morning, and I rolled over, saw a Jrue Holiday trade pop up on my phone, threw on my clothes as fast as I could, whatever I could find, and I I I first expected that the Celtics would have done at least maybe a pick swap with Portland for to even out the trade, but the Celtics were on the beneficial side of the trade for the long term um, value of it.
Well, I have to say, Franco, thank you for joining us with this live, because we love to hear your takes on it. As you
Don't
know,
flatter me.
I'm just saying, love it. Like, Franco's, we've seen him on the post game show with a pillow. Well, Franco is literally his head on a pillow and then rolls over, and boom, now we have a hour and 13-minute live going right now. So love to have you on, Franco. It's been a fun time, and it's not like we're here like with the like another trade where we could be like, oh, this sucks, this is terrible night. No, this is a good trade for both sides. Like, this is a even trade. Yeah, we're gonna miss Jrue Holiday, but the return we're getting is like, oh, okay, well, I'm not so sad. I love you, Jrue Holiday. We knew you were gonna leave, and we got a solid trade for him. It wasn't like, all right, well, we're getting the 17th draft pick, we don't know how he's gonna be, da da da. Like, all right, well, I'm going to miss Jrue Holiday. No, we're getting a guy that can be reliable and is going into his prime. And we also got 2 second-round picks. However, we gave up Jrue Holiday, who I loved watching him in Boston, and he was a very reliable piece for this Boston Celtics team, bringing you Banner 18. So it is a hard goodbye. However, the return that we got was well worth it, and an equal trade for both sides, I believe, in my opinion.
And looking at the market for Jrue Holiday, because this was also a discussion, and it's a discussion after every single trade that goes down. We saw the Kevin Durant trade. There was a million conversations about who was involved and what kind of players and picks were being thrown around in the market for Kevin Durant. But here we see a report coming out from Jared Weiss. Sacramento, Toronto, and Dallas were all interested in Jrue Holiday, but He lands back with the Portland Trailblazers, the team that flipped him to the Celtics 2 years ago after Jrue Holiday was traded to Portland
What the hell
from
were
Milwaukee for
Toronto gonna
Damian
do with
Lillard.
him?
What was that, Franco?
What the hell would Toronto do with him?
Toronto is in. They have a lot of big contracts. Oddly enough, Quickly, Barrett. They have who else am I thinking? I mean, Pirtle. He's a big deal. Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes. I mean, you have basically your big four, your big five contracts in Toronto. It's Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, R.J. Barrett, and then I just named the other guy. What? R.J. Barrett, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and Emmanuel Quickly. That was the other guy, and also Jakob Pertl as well. If you want to add him on to the end, 18 million. Toronto just has a lot of they have a lot of tradable big contracts, and I was looking at a world where maybe Toronto sent a guy like Barrett over for Jrue, or even Emmanuel Quickly over for Jrue. Likely not Scotty Barnes. Likely not Brandon Ingram. Pirtle, they seem to be pretty high on in talks anywhere. A report came out on him that he wasn't even offered in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes from Toronto. So Toronto, I would have guessed it would have been Quickly or Barrett. See, in all these deals, I mean, you have basically, we went through it. You have Sacramento, Franco, you were all over this. You had Malik Monk, Jonas Valanciunas, DeMar DeRozan, guys like that. And then Toronto, you had maybe RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly. In Dallas, you have, maybe I'm just saying you had Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington. But I'm connecting these dots because guess what happened earlier tonight, in which Griffin and I talked about this. Dallas Mavericks center Daniel Gafford intends to sign a three-year contract extension worth nearly $60 million. Sources tell ESPN. This is coming from Shams Charania earlier in the night, and of course, it came out a $54 million deal for Daniel Gafford. Now, I want to go back to this tweet now. So, $54 million extension for Daniel Gafford over the next 3 years, and I'll point this out because Daniel Gafford received a 3-year extension. In order for a team to be able to trade a player after an extension, that extension can only be worth 2 seasons and only up to 5% of the player's previous salary. So this deal right here, because it's a 3-year extension, the Mavericks cannot trade Daniel Gafford for another 6 months. So essentially all the way up until December. Again, December is when trade season starts. That's when a lot of the free agent, that's when the entire free agent class becomes eligible to be traded. Well, Daniel Gafford is now in that class along with all the free agents out there. Because of this extension, because of that 3rd year on the extension, the Mavericks cannot trade Daniel Gafford until December. So he's not eligible for trade this summer. I wonder, looking at this tweet right here, Sacramento, Toronto, Dallas, I wonder, just connecting the dots here, I wonder if Daniel Gafford and talks surrounding Daniel Gafford, or talks between the Celtics and the Mavericks, I wonder if they centered on Daniel Gafford. I wonder if the Mavericks were a little reluctant in giving up Gafford, or more picks, or more assets in the deal. I wonder if the Celtics wanted Gafford from Dallas, and this is where I'm connecting the dots. I'm wondering if Dallas went ahead and signed Gafford to that extension, kept him around long term, and the Celtics went ahead and did the Simons deal, or vice versa. The Mavericks knew, oh, the Celtics are going to go ahead and do the Simons deal. We don't have a trade partner in Boston anymore. Let's go ahead and sign Gafford to this contract extension. I don't know if those two things are correlated whatsoever. I'm not reporting that, but I'm just reading the tea leaves. Earlier today, Daniel Gafford signed to an extension. Later on in the evening, Anfernee Simons, Jrue Holiday swapped for each other, and Jrue Holiday is off to Portland. And then this report comes out: Sacramento, Toronto, and Dallas were all interested in Jrue Holiday. I wonder if the Gafford extension had anything to do with this trade going down tonight in the way it did, and the Celtics moving Jrue Holiday for Anfernee Simons. It's just a thought. It doesn't really matter a ton, but it is a thought. However, the rest of this tweet reads: rumblings started moving earlier this evening that the Blazers were serious about bringing in Holiday to fortify their defensive culture as they make a playoff push next season. And the Blazers, they do expect to be a little more frisky in the Western Conference. They were better than expected this past season in the Western Conference. And believe you look at their young talent and some of the pieces they own there out in Portland, it's possible the Blazers make the play-in or even the playoffs this season. Looking at the entire Western Conference, incredibly deep, but the Blazers, they are making a case to be up in that in the standings within the West next season. However, the rest of this tweet, Anfernee Simons had some fans in the Celtics front office when he was entering the league, so he could be a long-term play for Boston, even if he's on an expiring deal. This comes from Jared Weiss. This report, Sacramento, primarily the top here, Sacramento, Toronto, and Dallas were all interested in Jrue Holiday. We talked about Sacramento. We talked about Dallas. Didn't talk a ton about Toronto. We did talk about Toronto. We talked about every single team. With Dallas and Sacramento, where I mean, we spent like 30 minutes on those teams versus 5 minutes for other squads out there. I do wonder if some of the moves in the offseason are a little correlated out there. Gafford extension, Holiday moved to the Blazers. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I don't see the Mavericks keeping Gafford around because of I think there's a chance that trade is going to end up being a trade because it would be challenging for them to roll into next season with as much. I think they're going to end up narrowing down their roster. Moving off of Gafford was the thing that made the most sense for me, looking at their upcoming offseason that they have. But I think potentially they could be moving off of him because Anthony Davis technically wants to be played as a 4 slot, but in today's NBA, how effective is that? It's not the most effective thing in the world. So I think just going down to 2 centers, maybe Lively and Anthony Davis, if that you want to make that your 4-5, go knock yourself out. But you look at a guy like PJ Washington, you got Caleb Martin at the end, or is it Caleb Cody or Caleb?
Dallas has Caleb. Phoenix has Cody.
Yep.
Because I was on this the other day. Did we even talk? Yes, it was the Kevin Durant live, and I was like, okay, Cody Martin. Here we have Phoenix has Cody Martin here. That's so they got.
Yeah, and they also have Najee Marshall, and then they also have the number 1 draft pick in this year's draft, Cooper Flagg. So you're going to be looking at a full roster. So I think that Gafford, that extension could be a potential outlet move if they're planning on keeping him around. I think that might be a little dumb on their end and is just another wasted spot and just burning more money that they really can't afford to burn right now, especially with a young player coming in. You want to have some money stored in the back of the piggy bank when Cooper Flagg develops into the full-blown player that we know that he's capable of becoming, and you want to stick some talent around him that isn't aging out Kyrie, Anthony Davis, and Klay Thompson, who will be most likely on the back ends of their career within and seeing signs of regression. Well, they're all dealing with injuries this offseason, so we could see that regression show up earlier as early as next year, if not a year later.
Yeah, and Seamus, do you mind re-saying your question for a second?
Well, it's just more so the thought of potentially some of these other suitors, what could have fallen through there with Dallas, Toronto, Sacramento versus the value you get with Anfernee Simons. Like,
yes.
what are your general thoughts on what the Celtics could have received out there on the market and what likely happened behind the scenes for this to actually go down?
Well, I think this is probably the best trade that you could have had. I know we haven't talked about this a lot recently because, you talked about Malik Monk, maybe Jonas Valanciunas going, or DeMar DeRozan, or, you talk about Daniel Gafford, and you talk about those other names out there. However, we have not, I don't think I have even heard a lot about Anfernee Simons being the option for Jrue Holiday. So it's definitely an interesting one. And it's one where you already mentioned the Boston Celtics front office staff had some eyes on him. And when they have eyes on players, that's good things, like bringing in Jrue Holiday, for example. Brad Stevens loved him, and you saw the big smile on Brad's face when they brought him in. He was so happy to have Jrue Holiday in the Celtics organization. However, they did move him for Simons, and any move that Brad Stevens does to this point, I pretty much trust, because he hasn't made a risky move. And you look at this, you basically gave up Jrue Holiday for a scorer another scorer, a good option on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously is not so great on the defensive side. However, he makes up for it on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm happy with this trade opposed to other ones. I think this is a great option, and getting those 2 second-round picks in it makes this trade that much better. So I'm very much so happy about this trade compared to other ones.
I'm wondering what the 2 second-round picks are right now, because
If it's
there are
this,
always details of what exactly. I mean, in each deal. So I'm going to go look this up right now. And in each deal, we've had tidbits come out afterwards, whether it's in ESPN articles, other outlets state what the picks are. Sometimes they're very tough to. Let's see. Do we have any information here on the picks? Doesn't look like we know the picks right now. I don't know if anybody has the information on which second round picks. Not that it necessarily matters. I mean, it probably, it matters long term what position the Celtics are drafting, and maybe because it matters this year. Like, are the Celtics picking up another second round draft pick this year and in the future? I'm guessing they're going to be future first round, not future first round picks. That'd be great if we got a future first round pick for Jrue Holiday, but future second round picks for Jrue Holiday. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't think we have any information on this.
we'll have that later. Like I think the benefit
Right.
to this is, like, we just broke the news fast for you guys, and like we'll obviously have more details as later time goes through. But it's just it's so crazy how we were just on a live and like getting ready probably to wrap that one up too, Seamus, saying our
We were probably, I mean, we were on our last segment. I was on the last little couple of bullet points, and then we were done. And it turned into this. It turned into Jrue Holiday moved, and it just absolute craziness.
Yeah.
Absolute craziness. And we'll have more reaction on it moving ahead into the future here. And we'll have a live on it tomorrow. Some Celtics Nation Rise content coming
Go
out
check
as
that out.
well on the trade. So we'll have plenty more reaction on the trade as we move forward. This live was very, very spontaneous, very instantaneous, because again, we were already on a live. Now that other live, I'm sitting there going, what's funny is 3 hours ago, right now, 3 hours ago, I was sitting here thinking, all right, we doing a live tonight? Because the whole backstory was supposed to talk about the Celtics draft. Then I was like, I'll move that segment tomorrow, do something else tonight. Already had the graphics ready. I'm like, are we even going to use these graphics tonight? It's like, are we even going to use them? Who knew? Who knew that they'd be used on a Jrue Holiday emergency trade episode? Like, that was not really in the scope of. That was not in the cards 2 hours, 2.5, 3 hours ago. That was not the thought whatsoever.
It's
Absolutely
just
not.
like, and it's just like random times, like Kevin Durant, like that trade being held, or the Luka Doncic
I know.
trade at
That's
like
where I just
midnight.
wonder, like, what
It's
type
like,
of coordination goes into actually releasing this in the media, because sometimes I just feel like it's
yeah,
counterproductive to the NBA's.
I know,
Like,
like you
say the
couldn't do this
Kawhi,
at a better time.
Paul George maneuver that happened at 1 a.m.
No,
Like
like,
that
for example,
at night. It was like, whoa, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Paul George is a Clipper. Like, wait, no. Well, first it was Kawhi's a Clipper, and then it was and Paul George. Like, people forget how crazy that actually was now that we're post that saga. But that was, I mean, that was 1 a.m. That and that night, that was the NBA just never fails to come up with the most memorable nights and moments. That night, it was Zion Williamson's summer league debut. He got hurt in the first quarter of the game, or I don't know if it's the first quarter, but it was just during the game, right? I believe he played 9 minutes.
Didn't
Like
his
Zion,
shoe
the huge.
explode?
No, that was in college, but
Oh,
I don't remember what he did, but it was something. It was, if I'm not mistaken, this is the storyline. I might be wrong on this, so somebody might have to fact check me here. Zion was making his debut in summer league. I believe he played 9 minutes, got hurt, and they didn't play him for the rest of summer league. I believe that's how it went down. But Zion's technical NBA debut, like in summer league, not technically, but his summer league debut was that night. And then later during that same game, in which Zion is already out via injury, there's an earthquake in Las Vegas, and therefore everything going on at Summer League is canceled for that night. So you have Zion's debut, you have an earthquake in which strikes Las Vegas, and then at 1 a.m., Kawhi joins the Clippers, and not only does he sign with the Clippers, he forces the Clippers to go out and trade Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, a million first-round picks, Danilo Gallinari for Paul George, and that's how we came upon the Kawhi and Paul George,
But
and even the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander era in Oklahoma City and with the Thunder, in which, of course, we saw last night the Thunder win a title. Now, fast forward 6 years later, we have the Kevin Durant trade. Tyrese Halliburton tears his Achilles. The Thunder win the title, and now the Celtics have traded Jrue
well,
Holiday. And congrats, everybody! The draft is in about 40 hours.
well,
That's
just
where we're at
well,
right now.
it's the fact that people are gonna wake up like the diehard Drew Holidays on this, like diehard Holiday Celtics fans, and are gonna be just pissed off and all worked up. It's like, wait, why couldn't we like prepare my day for this? Like now I have to wake up to crappy news, or they're gonna be like, hey, Anfernee Simons, like what the heck? Why couldn't I be excited about this morning? Like why did it have to happen at 12 something at night?
well, good thing they're going to
Well,
see this live podcast tomorrow
They
morning. It's going
will.
to be the
They
first
will.
thing they see. And if they
Yep.
want to get all caught up on anything they missed because they needed to get to bed early tonight, we got them covered. We made sure we made sure those that everyone that needed their rest tonight sleep in tomorrow, and then just to turn on the Celtics Talk Weekly as you're eating your breakfast. And
Well,
yeah,
you say that too, and Seamus and I will have like a shorter version too for Celtics Nation Rise. So if you guys want to check that out too with some different takes too, go check that out too. That'll be
yeah,
all
we
set
we
for you
will
guys bright and early.
we will definitely have a lot more content coming out on this trade, and I think it's gonna. I always find when we go away from these live streams, like right now, we're initially reacting, but once we can kind of put together our thoughts a little bit better, and kind of produce more of a, because this is a very reactionary live stream. I expect us in the future, uh,
To really prepare for it.
tomorrow morning to have a live stream out um, in which is going to be a little bit more formal in discussing all of these aspects of this trade. Maybe we get
Right.
Breaking
some
down
other
stats and stuff like that.
faces on as well. However, and just dealing with some graphical or some graphic stuff behind the scenes here to make it a little bit more aesthetic here. However, that is going to do it for us here on this live stream tonight. As I mentioned, a lot more coming from us on the horizon on this Jrue Holiday trade. If you want to see our initial reaction, I mean, I felt like I lost all professionalism when the trade went down. I looked at my screen and went, like, it was
I
just
know
like a,
it freaked me
like,
out because we were talking about the finals. I know, and Franco, welcome to the Griffin's new haircut, by the way. We just have to throw that out there and talk.
we had a very light lot. Like, everything was very fun and light, and we were talking about, like, it was about last night's topics. It was like, what can we? It was like
Well, Seamus,
This is not
Seamus,
where I expected the night
can
to
I
go.
say from my initial thought, you were starstruck and you said Shea Gilgeous Alexander, and I was like, and then you said Boston Celtics, and you were like trade, and I was like, what? The Celtics just got Shea? I'm like, what? I'm like thinking
No,
in my
because
head, and then you were like Jrue Holiday, and I'm like, for what? I thought you, because you said Shea Gilgeous Alexander, and then you went from there to Boston Celtics trade, and I'm like, what?
we were in the middle. We were in the middle of talking about the
Yeah.
NBA Finals and the Thunder and everything, and I might have to wrap around on that segment. I have no idea because
Yeah, you guys have
I
to go
just I
check
don't.
that
It
out.
literally at that moment, my brain, like, I gotta go back and watch the video, but I was sitting there, like, we were just talking about the finals. I look down at my screen, I look at the notification, and like my first thought is like, do I finish this segment? And then it's like, nope, cut it, go on to the next. And it's like, all right, looks like we're doing this tonight. Jrue Holiday's traded, and yet we're here.
And yet
Right.
we have another episode to do for Celtics Nation Rise. So you guys will get plenty
Exactly.
of the content tonight. You guys will have plenty content.
Exactly. So therefore, with that being said, that is going to do it for us here on CTW Live as we get the audio queued up. At the end of this one, Jrue Holiday traded to the Portland Trailblazers, no longer a Boston Celtic, but forever a Boston Celtic at heart. Anytime you win a championship in Boston, you are forever Boston. That is Jrue Holiday. Thank you, Jrue, for 2 years of service with the Celtics. Thank you for a ring. Thank you for a banner. Thank you
love
for the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Much thanks to Jrue Holiday, and much hope and much faith given to Anfernee Simons on the way in to Boston, I'm sure, this evening. So, crazy night. Crazy time in the NBA.
Get some sleep, Franco. It's time. It's time where you could finally rest in that
Oh,
pillow.
I gotta draw pipe bombs tomorrow morning, but
Well, Seamus and I are going to be chilling to this rock music.
But that's going to do it for us here on CTW Live. Thank you all for watching. I am your host, Seamus Zarlingo. Alongside of me tonight, Nick Franco and Griffin Aldrich, Jrue Holiday in Portland, Anfernee Simons in Boston. Crazy time. And hey, we actually get to say it on this live stream. As we always say, go Celtics.
wow.
Go Celtics. And I'll leave you all with this one.
Those guys.
Thank you, Jrue.